So right now it's just kind of demonstrations. It's not obviously not a street legal vehicle, but we're doing demonstrations with the technology. The kids get it immediately, right? It's a solar powered car. We have solar batteries produced that are all around us. This is a recent demonstration at the Hawaii County Fair. That's our representative, Mina Morita, who's a very strong advocate of alternative power. This is my son, Sean. He's a test driver. He's actually our been the equipment operator at my farm since he was 4 years old. So he's hopefully what I think of as the first of the next generation. Even though he's been operating equipment for 4 years now, and he's only 8 years old, he's never operated a petroleum-powered vehicle. It's always either biodiesel or now gas-powered cars. So again, it's only our generation that are going to have difficulty with this. Our kapuna, did without it in most rural places. The kids are perfectly happy riding a horse to school, right? So whatever news, this is cool stuff. So give them the technology, give them the motivation, and they're there. This is an example of a workshop we went to in Berkeley, working with the guys who have now helped establish a new company on Kauai that's going to start manufacturing these units for use here in Hawaii. And interestingly enough, the design of these gasifiers, even though they're using new sheet-rolled metal, the design is based upon the use of used propane cylinders, right? So the whole idea is to reuse what typically we're throwing away. So the design is so that using different size propane cylinders that will fit inside each other. So that's the better burn we're after. What comes out the bottom of that gasifier at the stove is charcoal. Which leads to how we're going to put the answer in our hands of addressing the climate change issue, right? And it's easy for people living on the mainland. There's a famous research area in England called the Rothamsted Farm. Like 100 years ago, they shut down the farm and to follow what happens to fields when you fallow them, what happens to soil and fertilizer. And what they found is that in temperate areas where you have cool nights in the winter, like everybody goes inside during the winter, microorganisms in the soil shut down during the winter. So carbon from dead plants and leaves falling on the ground builds up. So people in England, North America, have actually an easy way of helping with climate change. Just kind of stop what you're doing. Walk away from half the farm and the carbon builds up in the soil. That doesn't happen in the tropics. There's no winter. Microbes eat day and night, 365 days a year. They'll eat every piece of carbon that lands on the ground. So we don't accumulate carbon in the ground in the tropics. That's why we have these beautiful red clay soils. There's no carbon. It's all minimal. Charcoal is incalcitrant. That's why archaeologists use it to date cultural sites, right? It goes in the ground. Microbes can't eat carbon in the form of charcoal. It stays there for a long, long time, probably tens of thousands of years. So if you chop down a tree, even a big, heavy tree, eventually the microbes get it, right? And eventually they metabolize it and the carbon goes back up in the atmosphere. If you cut down a tree and you burn it intelligently, right, you're going to lose a lot. Immediately you're going to combust a lot of those gases back up. But what remains becomes permanent incalcitrant carbon that if put back in the soil is going to replace some of that from the coal or oil that was burned somewhere else. So that's part of our better burn, is find a way to utilize our carbon neutral local biomass resources and burn it in a way that provides us with the industrial power that we demand, and in a way that provides us with a form of carbon that we can utilize to offset climate change. How does this address our last issue of tropical agriculture? Slash and burn has kind of been a typical MO for agriculture in the tropics all over the place because our soils are so poor and won't sustain long-term permanent agriculture. So interestingly enough, Indians in the Amazon about 2,000 years ago, and human occupation in the Amazon goes back 10,000 years prior to that, so it wasn't immediate. But they developed a method, rather than slash and burn, rather than oxidize, combust, they basically created like these big emu pits, right? And you cover it up. When you dig up an emu pit, you get charcoal in the bottom. And that's what they did on massive scales. And it turned into what they call terra preta. So they turn classic tropical lateritic clay depleted soils into black earth. It looks like something you find in Iowa farmstead. And what it does is it, for a whole bunch of reasons, it retains nutrients that are typically immediately leached in tropical soils. And these areas now have been continuously farmed for over a millennia, which is unheard of anywhere in the tropics, with the exception of some rice systems in Southeast Asia. So it is a way, putting that carbon in the form of charcoal back in the soil, not only pulls it out of the atmosphere permanently, it increases the ability of tropical soils to sustain permanent agriculture. Because it increases surface area in the soil, clay particles like our clays are like pages of a book. They can become flattened and compacted. There's no places for mycorrhizal hyphae and stuff to get in there. It also increases the cation exchange capacity of the soil. So if you put urea in your garden and it rains, urea is water soluble. It'll just immediately wash away with the rain. The clay cannot hold on to it. Charcoal has these exchange sites, these cations that hold on to the charged particles of urea, but won't wash away. So it is there for a longer period of time for the plants to access to. Recently, we've begun some biochar trials in a greenhouse on Kauai. This shows some of the results in the total weight of tomato plants, control different concentrations of biochar, and just soil fertilizer. And it increasing total plant weight, also total fruiting and flowering by hundreds and hundreds of percent. So basically, in some plants that have things unlike corn that have a large embryo, most plants will not grow in pure clay soils in Hawaii. You got to have massive amounts of fertilizer. So what we're demonstrating is, indeed, biochar is going to be one of the tools going forward in long-term sustainable agriculture in Hawaii. I think I'm going to end it here, and because I don't have a neat demonstration outside, but what I did, we created a biochar site on this, have we? Yeah. And so what I'll do, because this is a little bit difficult technology to engage in the schools, it requires burning, a little bit freaky. So what we'll do as our part in the UH is that through the website, I'll try to manage and host data and experiments that you guys might like to engage in to share results of any work that your classes want to participate in. We'll share our data on the same website to give you some ideas. We'll also send you, I'll produce that biochar and send it to you so that you can engage in some of the easy agricultural experiments and growth experiments if you're interested in that type of stuff. I will also share with you real-life demonstrations of the gasifier at schools. Right now we just have one on Kauai. This coming calendar year we'll set one up on Oahu. So excited to be able to provide those demonstrations to you. Thank you so much again for listening.